Hello everyone, my name is Patrick Kim and I'm the Work Comp Specialist over at Beere&Purves, and thank you all for joining me on today's Work Comp webinar. So right now we're kind of in a calm before the storm, before the market opens up again during the fourth quarter. And I know now is kind of a strange time in the insurance industry. We've survived ACA. Now we're trying to figure out what's going on with the American Health Care Act, and we're also kind of in the midst of the whirlpool that is the single-payer health in California. But one thing that's always remained the same despite all these trials and turbulence is the workers' compensation piece. Work comp really hasn't changed at all since day one. And by the end of today's Work Comp webinar, you should all feel more confident about workers' compensation and how BMP can help you make more money via the work comp piece. There we go. So for today's agenda, we'll start off with the workers' compensation carrier employer's compensation, which is the carrier BMP works with for its work comp offerings. The next item we'll go over is why should you offer workers' compensation. Next is why work comp is the easiest line of coverage to offer. Pairing work comp with some of the BMP carriers, what BMP can offer you on the work comp side, how to assist and support you. And then we'll finish off with a short Q&A session just to wrap things up. So let's begin. So for workers' compensation, Beere&Purves works with employers' compensation insurance, and we chose employers because it's rated A by AM PST, so there's really no concern regarding financial solvency. Next is the carriers' target industries fall in line with those groups that are really a good fit with the health carriers, which are predominantly white-collar industries. These are groups that usually offer plans with rich benefits and desire ancillary coverage as well. So that's typically a little higher in premiums and a little higher commission checks for you guys as well. And another thing about having target white-collar industries as a kind of a target appetite is that there's a natural filter that separates out high-risk and high-maintenance groups. And this dramatically simplifies work comp servicing and removes the possibility of getting a group that hops from one carrier to another. So we're all familiar with those kind of smaller, high-maintenance life and health groups where the commissions aren't that impressive, the premiums aren't that impressive, so we're constantly losing time on just trying to service these groups. With employers' compensation, because it's targeting those white-collar groups that are a little more knowledgeable about their work comp compliance and also take care in trying to ensure a safe and healthy workplace environment, there's really no need for concern about groups constantly needing to be serviced on their claims or how to get help, et cetera, et cetera. Another nice thing about employers is that they also offer a pay-as-you-go plan where premium payments are paid via ACH based on information the group submits to the carrier directly. This allows precise premium payments to be made so the group isn't overpaying their premiums or underpaying their premiums. So kind of another way to think of this is that it's sort of a group administration portal where the group can administer their work comp policy directly. A lot of the other carriers have something similar, but work comp has this as well. I think an equivalent would be Anthem's employer access, where groups administrate terminations, billing, et cetera, via this one simple portal. That way it takes a lot of pressure off your team in terms of servicing. And probably the most unique thing about employers, though, is that it is currently the only carrier that offers a partnership product with a medical carrier. Now, this is something I'll get into a little later in the presentation. So when we start going over some of the how work comp / employers pairs well with some of the medical carriers we work with here at BMP. Another nice thing is that employers also offers free loss control or safety consultation services to make sure the group has a safe workplace and can reduce future workers' compensation costs. And this is a particularly useful tool that can be used to try and help attract groups away from PEOs. And this is because a PEO charges a fee for every little thing, and this includes safety consultation, whereas employers' compensation offers those safety consultation services for free. So really, why do workers' compensation? So first and foremost, the biggest reason to do work comp is that it's an easy source of revenue. And this is because the coverage and benefits are determined by the government. So really, there is no diversity with the product. It's not like carrier A has platinum, gold, silver, carrier B has platinum, gold, silver with varying benefits, varying networks. every carrier in the United States, even State Fund, offers pretty much the exact same coverage. It's going to cover any sort of on the job injury or any injury or illness caused by the job. So the sale dynamic of marketing work comp is also quite simple because it's really about who has the lowest price. Whoever has the lowest price in terms of premiums, in terms of rates, wins the group essentially. And as mentioned previously, even servicing work comp is pretty easy because all one really needs to do is to utilize the carrier resources like the member portal or group administration portal. And even if the group doesn't want to utilize some more of the technology services, it's really just about keeping the policy up to date. As long as the policy is kept up to date, there's really nothing that can appear and blow up the work comp and compromise the medical side as long as we keep the policy updated. And the second reason why to do work comp is unfortunately the medical carriers are starting to cut their commissions. So let me pull up the small group commission schedule here. Excuse me. So prior to ACA, a decent sized group would get you a nice, healthy, sizable commission check from the carrier. Now the carriers are starting to be a little less generous with their commission checks. So Aetna, Anthem, HealthNet, and UHC are currently all at 5% commissions, whereas CalChoice is a little on the higher side. CalChoice is still a 6.5% commission from 1 to 50 enrolled and 5% from 51 to 100 size groups. Now, the only commissions that have not been cut are ancillary products, and in this case, workers' compensation. So in order to supplement the loss in revenue from the decreased commissions really is to supplement the loss in revenue with other products, be it vision, dental, or in the specific case, workers' compensation. And so as a producer, you're really stuck with two options, to either write more business to supplement the loss in income, or try to supplement the lost revenue by offering your existing book of business new lines of coverage. And generally speaking, it's easier to add an additional line of coverage onto an existing group than writing a brand new group. Of course, we want to write new groups. That's where the money is and we want to grow. But also, it's given how turbulent the market's become, it's a little easier said than done. So third is that workers' compensation is mandatory coverage. Every single business in the United States, as long as the group is not an owner-only business, must have workers' compensation coverage. It's not an optional product like ancillary or something that a business owner can sort of just bite the bullet on and swallow, like the tax penalties for mandatory group coverage for businesses. If a business does not have workers' compensation, the business can be shut down. Business owners are liable for the full cost of any sort of medical bills and also be charged civil penalties and, in the worst possible scenario, actually go to jail. So for those of you that might offer HR resources, workers' compensation is a natural pairing because you're also helping with the compliance aspect of work comp, or excuse me, of the compliance aspect of HR by offering the work comp piece as well. Now, the reality of the market now is that it's sort of become a seasonal business. Instead of a stable flow of business to keep us busy and sustain our finances, now we really have an explosion of business during the fourth quarter, which drives everyone kind of nuts. Until the fourth quarter starts, though, how are we going to sustain ourselves and keep our agents busy? So work comp is a great way to get additional revenue, as previously mentioned, and also as a tool to prospect groups before open enrollment and before the fourth quarter. You can reach out to your current groups or perhaps even new business groups and ask if they're interested in looking at workers' compensation. By pushing the work comp piece, you can get your foot in the door and then very quickly start talking about the medical piece, which is where the real money is at, of course. Now, by selling work comp to your groups, you're also making them much stickier and less likely to move in the event a competitor tries to get their hands on your group. So right now, it's all the name of the game really is about how do we retain and grow our business. Well, workers' compensation is a tool that can be utilized for both. Retain, it makes your groups much stickier by offering another line of coverage that makes them less likely to try to move all their group coverage, be it like health, ancillary, and the work comp piece. You're just, again, making them stickier. And the second is that it's, again, being utilized as a pre-prospecting tool. Reach out to groups now that aren't locked in on that fourth quarter business date. Prospect them now with the work comp piece. get a feel for the group, try to pull as much information you can from the group to prepare in advance of the fourth quarter, and maybe even start trying to quote them and write them now. Because as we always kind of mention at BNP, before the fourth quarter, try to get your groups in as soon as possible to kind of ease everyone into to make things just less stressful for everyone on the fourth quarter side. Another big bonus is that for work comp in California, you do not need a PNC license in order to sell workers' compensation and be paid commissions on work comp groups in California. This is California exclusive. So long as you have a valid life and health license, you can still sell workers' compensation and be paid commissions on it, even though it's technically a PNC product. So, now for the next part, work comp as the easiest line of coverage. So those of you who have sort of shied away from work comp because of concerns about losing the medical, because if the work comp goes up, it's going to hurt the medical, and it's going to kind of create some tension between the brokers and the groups, you don't really need to be that concerned. Because work comp servicing is centered on two things really: keeping the policy updated and just filing claims on time. So by keeping the policy updated, the group's policy will always reflect the most accurate information, and there won't be any surprises in the middle of the policy year. And really, this isn't something new to us, regardless of the line of coverage. So with medical coverage, we audit bills to make sure that the correct premiums are being charged and whoever should be on the plan is on the plan. We also communicate with groups to make sure that members that need to be termed are removed from coverage or they're put onto COBRA. And work comp, again, really is no different when it comes to servicing. Just make sure that members that are no longer employed are termed from coverage. Any sort of business changes are reported, so changes in address, mailing address, business address, etc. That's made known to us as well. And that's really about it in terms of just maintaining coverage for the group, making sure everything's healthy beyond, of course, paying your premiums on time. And again, as previously mentioned, even workers' compensation as a product is simplified because coverages are determined by the government. So every carrier in the U.S. is pretty much going to offer the same benefits and coverages. It's that if you're hurt on the job or because of the job, you will get workers' compensation, you'll get work comp coverage benefits. So in order for a member to get benefits, really, it's also a very simple process as well. The member just needs to go see a work comp physician. Excuse me. So when there's a claim or on a job injury, for example, the employee just needs to see a in-network physician. So it kind of works like more like an EPO in the sense that as long as you see a in-network physician, you'll get coverage. There is no out-of-benefits coverage, and that's not necessarily a bit of concern because the reason all the carriers want you to see an in-network physician is because these in-network physicians are specially trained, qualified, and certified workplace injury doctors. And all the carriers want injured members to see someone that is specially trained to handle workplace injuries and not necessarily someone's general practitioner. Although it's possible for an individual to use a general practitioner, it's definitely not recommended. And in more cases, I would say maybe 90+% of the cases I run into where someone tries to see a general practitioner, the doctor just straight up says, no, unfortunately, I can't service you, Mr. or Miss John Joan Smith, because I'm not a work comp doctor. I'm not a workplace injury doctor. I can refer you to someone, but you really have to see a workplace injury doctor. And hospitals are also mindful of this as well. You go in for an injury or something, they'll more often than not ask you, is this a work-related injury? And then it goes on from there. So there's a natural filtering process. And kind of to develop the idea of the networks is that unlike life and health, there's, again, no need to worry about multiple networks. Carriers generally only have one network that covers all of its groups in the state or in the country. And to build on some of the benefit side, it's sort of like a super life and health product. Every single work comp carrier is going to cover on-the-job claims, be it lost wages, death benefits, medication that might be needed to address the injury, or even something as simple as like stitches, casts, et cetera, So probably the best part about the claims process for workers' compensation is that so long as a claim is filed timely, the member and the group don't have to worry about the claim anymore. And this is because the carrier and the provider are the ones that are going to hash out the details of the claim. If in fact, it's illegal for a provider to reach out to the member to bill them for any work comp related services. So there's that extra layer of protection. So really, all the member needs to do is go to the hospital, tell the doctor the injury is work-related, and provide the work comp policy number and the carrier name. And if the member doesn't know what those are, that's perfectly fine. The hospital itself can reach out to the group's HR person, who can then provide that information to the provider as well, be it the hospital administrator or to the doctor itself if it's a small mom and pop clinic. Now, the claims process is simple as well, because again, members don't need to worry about multiple networks or different work comp benefits. Each member gets the exact same work comp coverage, and each carrier in the U.S. is going to offer the same level of benefits. And there's only one, probably the best part also is that there's really only one form. It's a standardized form that's unique to each state, not to each carrier. It's unique to each state. So California has its own universal claim form. Arizona has its own universal claim form. Texas has its own. It's just that one form that can be pretty much just be Googled. California work comp claim form or Texas work comp claim form. It's not carrier specific. So that just, again, really pushes how simple really the work comp piece in terms of claims, servicing, et cetera, et cetera. Now, even presenting the quote for workers' compensation is quite simple because, again, everything is standardized between the carriers. So the only thing the group cares about is really the premiums. As previously mentioned, the lower the premiums, the more attractive it is for a group to move to a different work comp carrier. Oops. So this is just an example quote, but roughly this is the general outline of what's going to be provided from a work comp carrier. So when presenting a quote, there are really only three numbers that are important. Let's see, whoops, a little too fast. The payroll for the group, because that's what determines premiums, the rate the group is being charged, and the annual premium right here. Those are the top three numbers. So when you're presenting, so long as these three numbers are in spades, chances are very, very good that you'll win the group. Something to make sure, though, is that the payroll is accurate because that's what determines workers' compensation premium. So unlike life and health, where it's the number of lives, age, region, dependents, and plans, for work comp, it's just a very simple, we need to know what your payroll is. As long as you get your payroll, the carrier and the quoting engine can take care of everything else. So really, there's not much need to be intimidating workers' compensation because everything surrounding it, the servicing, the claims process, the network, even presenting the quote, et cetera, is very simple and standardized. So what's needed for a work comp quote? In order to start quoting work comp, the only items needed are the estimated annual payroll per employee classification. And this is because, again, as previously mentioned, unlike life and health, premiums are determined by payroll, not the age or the number of employee members. And another item that's needed is a loss run report or a claims report from the incumbent carrier so that the carrier's underwriting team can understand what kind of risk they're quoting for. So, for an example, an industry that is historically safe, let's say an accounting office, let's say they aren't utilizing best practices and they have a history of chronic claims, stubbed toes, dropping computers or filing cabinets, whatnot. On face value, the carrier might be very interested in writing this group, but the moment they start seeing like, oh, wait a minute, this group has a lot of claims, we're going to have to start charging a little extra premiums just to make sure that we're solvent and insulated. That's why that loss run report's needed. And getting that is actually very easy. All the group really needs to do is just reach out to the carrier, to their incumbent carrier, and just request a loss run report. All the carrier group member needs to say is, my name is John Smith, my company name is this, here's my policy number, just give me a loss run report, and the carrier servicing agent will know exactly what the member or the insured is requesting, and just send it directly to them via email or fax. And the last item needed is a completed universal work comp application, which pretty much asks for what was previously mentioned and some rudimentary information like the mailing address, what are the business locations, number of employees, and of course, estimated annual payroll. Something to know is that the universal work comp application actually asks for less information than your average ER app. And it's also a standardized form that can be used anywhere in the United States. So this is the universal work comp application. Pretty much all the highlighted information is what's needed, and none of it's exactly pretty new to us when we're trying to fill out an employer application for a group, or even on the members or on the group side when the administrator is trying to fill out an employer application. We need the business name, mailing address, some sort of contact information, email or phone, how many years in business, what kind of business entity, of course, the employer ID number, business locations, of course, the effective date, that comes standard, the employee classification, so it might be I'm a clerical person, I'm a salesperson, I'm a software engineer maybe, number of employees full and part-time, what each classification's payroll is, some rudimentary ownership info, who is the president, who is the CFO, who is the VP, how much do they own, do they desire to be on work comp coverage, do they desire to be waived from work comp coverage. Of course, this asks for the loss run information, and just again, general description of the business info. And beyond that, this is just standard, pretty basic information, some of which will probably never happen. So like any work performed underground or above 15 feet, anything on boats, stuff like that, that'll probably never, ever happen in terms of groups you might conventionally be working with. So with that said, let's start right into the carrier partners. So Aetna. With Aetna, it's actually very easy to forget about the asking about workers' compensation since the carrier doesn't really care about work comp. I actually don't even think it's even asked for on the employer application. But just because the application doesn't explicitly ask for work comp doesn't mean it's something that we should forget. Really, the reason we should also ask for the work comp piece is, again, we don't want to leave free money on the table. If there's a line of coverage we can offer to get additional revenue out of it, might as well increase retention and grow our, secure ourselves more financially so. So in order to make selling work comp with Aetna pretty easy, really it's just the group needs to complete their employer application, which is going to happen anyway if the group's selling with Aetna. And the estimated annual payroll info is really the only info needed to quote, underwrite, and sell work comp for the group. So long as you have completed the Aetna employer application, provide the group's payroll info, you're ready to start quoting and selling employers work comp. The only time there might be a slight hitch is if the group is particularly complicated, like let's say it's a conglomerate. So we have a mother corporation, then we have multiple subsidiaries. That's always a mess to write on the life and health side, and it's going to be a little bit of a mess to write on the work comp side as well. But again, through Beere&P, we'll be happy to service you in terms of both the work comp or life and health. So next item is Anthem Blue Cross, which is easily the best fit with employers and workers' compensation. And this is because any group that's been cross-sold Anthem Blue Cross Medical with employers work comp, the group gets a 10% discount on their workers' compensation premiums. So if any of you have Anthem Blue Cross groups currently, you can actually start cross-selling your Anthem groups with employers work comp and provide a strong incentive for the group to reassess their current workers' compensation policy because it's already something to hook the group and start that conversation for additional savings. Another reason why Anthem Blue Cross and employers are great products to cross-sell is because both groups are pretty startup friendly. Really for a startup group, Anthem just needs that startup companies form and 30 days of payroll, and that's about it. So unlike some of the other work comp carriers that straight up won't accept startup groups, employers is actually quite friendly to them. They don't really ask for any additional information, just a very basic fill out the universal work comp app and we'll go on from there. Even though, one thing I will say is that even though the business technically doesn't have a number of years in business, employers will actually ask for number of years in business experience. That way they can use that to justify additional discounts for further savings. So another nifty tidbit is that Anthem's employer application explicitly asks for the group's work comp info like carrier, effective date, and policy number. So this already brings up the conversation of workers' compensation, and really to get the ball rolling for work comp piece, on Anthem Blue Cross is just to ask, are you happy with your current carrier? And do you want to see if I can get you better premiums? There's really nothing to lose but everything to gain in terms of the work comp piece when you ask, because when you ask, you're saying, okay, are we sure that your work comp carrier currently work with has the best price, or perhaps we can try to get you some other savings? And it's again, work comp really isn't something that comes to the forefront of a business owner's mind. It's sort of a tax, if anything, and really they just see it as something that's mandatory coverage. It's not something that they always think about or have to change, unlike the life and health side where they have to consider rates, premiums, benefits, coverages, et cetera, et cetera. So CalChoice. CalChoice is picky about work comp since they are a TPA, a third-party administrator, and they do require work comp to be in place either on or before the effective date of a group. So for new business groups, the effective date requirement can really put pressure on a group, or excuse me, I should say a startup group more specifically. The effective date can really put pressure on a group because the work comp has to be in place on or before the requested effective date. So if you have a startup group that's looking to CalChoice, it's important to get the work comp going reasonably well in advance of the effective date, depending on the industry. So for, again, those target white-collar groups for employers, tech groups, accounting offices, and the like, a few days or weeks will suffice because a work comp underwriter isn't really going to take time to underwrite extensively, because white-collar groups, generally speaking, are often very safe risks. The only time a white-collar group might get underwritten extensively is if the group has a history of chronic claims, or if the group has suffered a very large claim, like a death or some sort of maiming. Those are the only times that the underwriter might ask for additional details, but even then for a white-collar group, it's not much more than maybe 24 to 72 hours to process that. If the group is a blue or gray collar business, then you really want to start quoting the group's work comp several weeks or maybe months in advance. Really no greater than 3 months in advance is necessary. This is because the underwriter is going to ask for a lot of items. And this is going to include the loss run report from their previous carrier, what was the group's premiums for the past 4 years, or detailed information about the group's operations. Like for an engineering firm, if they might ask, what sort of materials does the group work with, or what tools does the staff use? And this can dramatically lengthen the work comp sale process for your group and could even compromise the effective date of your group in terms of getting them with CalChoice. So you really want to submit your groups timely to get the desired effective date for work comp with CalChoice, and unfortunately CalChoice isn't that flexible when it comes to honoring effective dates that were submitted late. And this is particularly true during the fourth quarter when everyone's slammed and no one really wants to make those exceptions, at least on the carrier side anyway. So if you have a startup that's looking to CalChoice, again, you definitely want to start asking about the work comp to protect the group's effective date, keep the group in compliance, and of course earn some extra cash from the group as well. Keep in mind though that employers is not an ideal carrier for gray collar groups and a number of blue collar groups. But again, it is friendly towards startups and white collar groups. So help with application explicitly requests for work comp on the employer application. Just something to know, however, is that currently Health Net does have an underwriting promotion that is favorable for startup groups. So a group with 60 to 100 active subscribers that have been in business for at least 4 weeks will now be considered a guarantee issue, and the group will have to only provide 4 weeks of payroll instead of 6 weeks. If they haven't been long enough to get a DA9C essentially. So with groups with 1 to 5 subscribers, they still need to provide payroll that needs to span at least 50% of the prior calendar quarter minimum. So for those of you trying to take advantage of the new underwriting promotion with HealthNet, work comp is definitely something that's going to come up in the conversation. because again, it's a startup group. The group doesn't have work comp, and unfortunately in the U.S. it's mandatory coverage, or else there's some pretty harsh penalties, civil and criminal otherwise. So instead of charging work comp off, try to see if you can write that business, get that extra money in your pocket, and again, increase the stickiness of the group from the start. So for United Healthcare, when it comes to work comp, UHC stands out with regards to work comp in terms of its ACEC program. The ACEC program is essentially a program for groups with SIC code 8711 or as an engineering group that allows them to gain access to composite rates with Illinois rates and benefits. And the way this combines nicely with employers' work comp is that engineering is an eligible industry with employers' compensation insurance. So the only thing that might throw the group off in terms of the work comp is what kind of materials the group works with, if they go to job sites, and if the group has a history of chronic claims. However, with the ACEC program, there's still a strong incentive to bundle because there are discounts on the UHC ancillary premium. And this is particularly if the ancillary, the dental and vision, are employer sponsored and are sold. So when you're prospecting groups and having a look into the ACEC program, you definitely want to try to get the group's work comp as well, because you're already interacting with a group that's part of an eligible industry, and there's already a strong incentive to bundle as many lines of coverage as possible, again, to increase revenue, increase stickiness, and also add additional added value service to your clients. So why do work comp with Beere&Purves? And the theme here is we really make it simple. So from the initial submission to sale, we make the entire process easy. And we do our due diligence to pre-underwrite the group, pull as much information as possible in order to maximize efficiency and to expedite the work comp underwriting, quote, and sale process. So we walk you through the entire work comp process from prospect to sale, and even post-sale, just to make sure that you understand what's going on and why, and what's needed in order to service or address the group's questions or concerns. And the biggest benefit is that by selling work comp via Beere&Purves, of course, you can sell work comp, be paid commissions on the account without needing an appointment or being bound to production obligations. So let's say work comp isn't your focus, which that's perfectly fine. Just send us your work comp groups as they arrive. So let's say you run into a situation with a startup group or a group that just hired their first employee. Well, the group needs work comp anyway, so instead of walking away and leaving free money on the table, send the group to us, B&P, and we can quote, underwrite, and sell the group, and you can get money for the submission. Another way B&P can help you is with the out-of-state licenses. So let's say you approach with a group that needs work comp in Florida. Instead of you, the broker, having to get all the materials needed to get an out-of-state license for Florida, which is quite extensive, to be honest, fingerprints, legal docs, etc., just put it through B&P, and we can get the quote out for you, sell the group, so that you can still be paid commissions on the group. And of course, finally, B&P makes you guys highly competitive compared to others, particularly on the work comp side, because we, again, work very efficiently and effectively to minimize the back and forth. So by utilizing either an old employer application, group's website, and business name, we can pretty much pull the vast majority of information needed in order to begin quoting and underwriting a group. Really, the only information we will always ask for, no matter what is the group's estimated payroll and what the ownership info is, because that's information that's always kept secret. And really, it's just let B&P do your servicing so that you can get additional revenue without any production requirements easily. And we're very flexible in terms of communication if you want us to service your groups directly, or if you want us to essentially compile all the information together, pass it to you so that you can turn around and speak to your clients about it. So we are starting to wrap up, but these are also another added value service B&P offers our brokers. We do have a Twitter, LinkedIn, and a YouTube account and email so that you guys can stay up to date on legislative updates, changes in carrier rates, products, et cetera, and we are in the process of working on text alerts in terms of carrier updates and rate changes or anything like that. But that's still to be determined, still in kind of the beta phase right now. So now it's a question and answer session, but just before we get into the questions, I just want to try to address some FAQs. The first one is, how do I be a competitive agent in terms of workers' compensation? And the best way to do that is by getting as much information as possible to minimize the back and forth conversations. As previously mentioned, with BNP, we give you that competitive edge by being able to pull information on the group independently, again, using the group's name and website. So for a normal group, the surefire way to get everything that's needed to quote is the group's work comp renewal doc, or the current policy doc, and 4 years loss runs, both of which the group can provide just by asking their current carrier. And again, work comp isn't something that's constantly on the forefront of a group's mind. The only time it ever really comes up, to be honest, is when a broker or agent asks them about it, or the group, the previous agent servicing wasn't on par. So for example, there might be a situation where the final audit wasn't appropriately processed or audited, so the group had a large owed back premium. That's something that can cause a group to blow up in terms of work comp. But again, by working with Beere&Purves, we audit those documents. We make sure everything's in line in terms of what's reported so that there aren't any concerns about the group blowing up or that there's any inaccurate information being reflected on the policy. The next question that often comes up is, are there any other carriers besides Anthem Blue Cross and employers that have some sort of work comp and medical bundling? At this time, employers and Anthem Blue Cross are really the only carriers that have such a product. PEOs might offer some sort of bundling discount, but the savings aren't always going to be there. And that's because PEOs are just going to charge a group for services for pretty much everything that's under the sun. Payroll administration, safety audits, really anything that can be fined, they'll charge on it. So again, that's kind of another way to push the work comp pieces with going direct, particularly through employers. All your charges and fees are itemized, so you know exactly what you're paying for, how much, and why it's being charged. Next question that often comes up is, how does the BNP work comp submission process work? And the way it works really is you let us know what a group wants work comp. We pre-underwrite and pre-populate the Universal Work Comp app. Then we send the application and the missing items list to you. Once the missing items list has been satisfied, then BNP quotes the group. We send the final proposal to you with all the pertinent information needed to be presented, which is highlighted and explained to you. And then really, if the group desires to accept the quote, we just need a simple email saying the group desires to find coverage, along with any waiver docs, any waiver docs that might be needed, and that's really about it. Very simple process. Next question is in terms of the communication process. So how does BNP communicate work comp info either to us, the broker, or to the group? The way it works is hard copies of policy docs will always be sent to the insured via post mail. And to you, the brokers and agents, we send you soft copies of all policy docs as well. And in terms of any communication, like let's say the insured calls BNP directly for some questions, we can address their questions directly, and then we can loop you into the conversation. Or if we resolve the inquiry right then and there, then we'll just shoot you a kind of a summary email saying, hey, this group, this policy number called regarding this issue has been resolved. These were the steps that were taken to resolve the issue. Very, very simple. If you wish, BNP can service the work comp groups directly and keep you updated, or we can send all the important information to you directly so that then, again, you can turn around and just send it or explain it to your client directly. And now I'll be able to take your questions. Let's see here. Bear with me. So one question is, isn't the Anthem deal only for the first year of employers? And that is not true. The Anthem deal still works with employers so long as the group is cross-sold employers work comp with Anthem Blue Cross. So if the group, so let's say you have a group currently, they have Anthem Blue Cross medical and they have employers work comp. The group will always get that 10% work comp premium discount so long as the group's medical is with Anthem Blue Cross and their work comp coverage is with employer's work comp. Obviously, if the group moves off employer's work comp, the 10% discount doesn't exist. But let's say if the group still keeps their employer's work comp, but they move from Anthem Blue Cross, let's say UHC, whose rates are looking pretty darn good, the group would in fact lose the 10% discount upon their renewal. So kind of develop that idea is, let's say a group, this fourth quarter, November, let's say November 15, has, and it's a startup group, let's say they start off with Anthem Blue Cross Medical, employer's work comp, but let's say for whatever reason they decide to change their carrier midterm during the summer next year. Let's say by some miracle UHC has a change your effective date promotion sort of deal. I guess not really, but let's say they just change carriers for whatever reason. The groups, even though the group's medical policy changed midterm in terms of the effective date, because the work comp piece didn't end or expire yet, the group is still going to receive that 10% discount one full calendar year later. So group gets written November 1, 2017. The group will continue to have that 10% discount all the way through November 1st of 2018. And then upon the renewal, that's when the discount would disappear, assuming they stay off employer's work comp. So another question is the employers on the Anthem monthly bill? So yes. The employers in Anthem Blue Cross integrated billing, integrated product, I guess, is on a monthly billing. So the way this works is instead of being on a conventional 9-month billing plan with 9 installments, it's a 10-month installment plan, and that comes standard. But let's say the group wants to pay everything in full at once, they can do that with no penalties, no fees, no extra charges. Kind of the issue where the issue starts to come in where, let's say the group wants to be on a quarterly billing plan or biannual billing plan, that's when there's some kind of issues, because the whole billing cycle and invoicing cycle kind of gets a little screwy. I've never seen a situation where a group actually wanted to pay bigger installments. Typically in situations, kind of the allure of the Anthem integrated product isn't just because of discount, it's also because of the budget flexibility. More installments means more monthly payments, which in turn means more budget flexibility per month. In situations where a group might want to not have to deal with the hassle of sending in checks, they can make online payments, or they can make phone payments, which are, again, free of charge. It's a very simple, fast, and easy process. There, again, as previously mentioned, there is a pay-as-you-go plan, but there are some caveats to that, however. First and foremost is that groups have to qualify. The annual premiums bare minimum must be $2,500, and the group does have to submit payroll information, be it a payroll summary report or something like that. The employers does work with a handful of payroll companies. I think they work with about 7 or 8 payroll companies, where if you submit the payroll information to the payroll company can just take that info and automatically give it to employers for kind of a true integrated invoicing. And this is also reoccurring ACH payments as well. So as long as the group is doing their due diligence with their payroll company, their premiums are going to be charged precisely. Something I will note is that PEOs will also push this product as well, claiming that they don't have to do an end-of-year audit. That's absolutely not true. It's by law. All work comp groups have to comply with an end-of-year audit. There's no exception, even if you're doing precise pay billing or anything like that. So if there are any additional questions, please let me know. Oops. This is my contact information right here. So you can reach out to me via email, phone, whatever, and I'll be more than happy to assist you on any sort of work comp questions or inquiries you might have. As previously mentioned, kind of the niche is the white collar groups for employers, and of course, very startup friendly. So if you guys do run into any sort of startup groups, particularly tech firms, accounting offices, now it's kind of the generation of startups, particularly in San Francisco. This is something we can absolutely assist you with in terms of making sure coverages are in place, making sure the groups, or maybe even if a group currently has work comp, we're more than willing to audit the group's bills or final audits just to make sure that everything's squared up. It's because let's say, and this is a real situation where a group was paying premiums for a work comp policy they didn't even need, we can actually assist with that and give consultation on those services as well, again, as an added value service to you and your clients. So if you have any additional questions or concerns, of course, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. Just something to note is that this webinar is also recorded. So for those of you fiercely taking notes, just be advised that we will be sending out a link to this recorded video within 24 to 72 hours. Thank you all so much for your time, and have a wonderful day.